Hi guys, it's Kirsty. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the cognitive distortion that's called thought-action fusion and how this can fuel our OCD and kind of end up with us getting more and more locked on. But before I go into that, I'd like to ask, please do subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below in order to stay up to date with new videos as they're released. Also, please do press like if you do like this video, if it's helpful to you. And also feel free to write in the comments if you have any ideas of other videos that you'd like us to have a go at covering, and we will see what we can do. So somebody requested this video in relation to certain themes. So as I talk about this cognitive distortion, I will also give some examples of how that may come up for certain OCD themes that we might be having. So firstly, I'm going to give a definition of thought-action fusion that I found on the internet. So here we have the definition. Thought-action fusion is when you believe that simply by thinking about an action, it's the equivalent to actually carrying out that action. So essentially, we start to think that if we think about something enough, we'll end up doing it. And sometimes we can end up, we can get very, very caught up in anxious thinking, and it can go from kind of fearing that we might do something to actually feeling like we're going to. So it almost kind of feels like an urge. So I've done a video about intrusive urges a few months ago, and I think I did focus quite a lot on harm related themes that people may have when talking about the urges. So in this video, I am going to be referring to how, sometimes it can turn into intrusive urges, but I want to make sure I give other examples of how that may come up for other themes. So when it comes to OCD, thought-action fusion can make it seem kind of almost more real, like some of the like many of the other cognitive distortions that we talk about. We talk about black and white thinking, catastrophic thinking. So with black and white, it's it's either one thing or the other. With catastrophic thinking, it's that we are kind of basically really, really blowing something up and making it seem like it's awful. So we speak a lot about that on this channel when we talk about working on changing irrational beliefs into rational beliefs, because quite a lot of our irrational beliefs that fuel our anxiety are tend to be what we call awfulizing, which essentially is catastrophic thinking. So with these kind of cognitive distortions, they can make things seem like extra scary. So it kind of adds to the anxious thinking and the thought cycles kind of going around in our mind. And the idea of thought-action fusion is no different. It's kind of almost like a misconception that we may have, that we think that we believe that by, if we're thinking something, it firstly means that we might be more likely to do something that we don't want to do, but also that by thinking something, it says something about us as a person, even if we're not acting on those thoughts. Just the very act, just the very having those thoughts can mean something about us as a person. So to give some examples, firstly, of, believing that by thinking something, we may end up doing it. So to give an example with, let's go with our OCD, relationship focused. It might be that somebody's been having intrusive thoughts about, that they don't love their partner, or that they have, they have to break up with their partner because they don't love them. And then because they start thinking, oh, do I need to break up my partner? And then it starts to sort of feel almost like, well, if I'm thinking about it, then I might do it. And then with all of the anxious thinking that's going on around this, and, various mental compulsions that might be going on, testing our feelings, internal analysis, rumination, and all of that. And by the way, if you want to learn more about mental compulsions, there's lots of videos on this channel about that as well. So including rumination and like mental checking and checking our feelings and kind of testing ourselves. So with a lot of that going on, it almost then kind of links the thought to the behaviour. And then it can almost go from being afraid that because we're thinking we might break up with our partner, that we might do it. It almost then becomes like we feel an urge, like we're going to blurt it out. We might be sort of then feeling like, because it's going on in my mind, and then it's like, oh, am I going to actually blurt it out and kind of accidentally break up with them? Or, for example, if you're suffering with religious kind of related obsessions, sometimes known as scrupulosity, it might be that you're kind of thinking that just, having intrusive thoughts perhaps about, about your religion or the god or gods that you kind of worship. And then you may think that, what if I accidentally say these thoughts that I'm having, in inappropriate situation, like in your place of worship, or maybe around close family members, maybe at a wedding or a funeral or something like that, because you thought about it, then you're afraid you might blurt it out. And with that, it also may be that you're thinking, because you're having those thoughts, that means that you don't love your God or gods, or that you don't care anymore. So, there's kind of that as well. And obviously, obviously as I mentioned previously, I've done another video about intrusive urges. So when we might think about if you're having obsessions about harm, in any kind of form, whether that's POCD or whether that's kind of driving, like, afraid of that you're going to run someone over, or that you'll accidentally hurt somebody, or anything like that. It may be that you're kind of thinking it, so then you're afraid you're more likely to do it. So, does this mean I actually want to hurt someone, or I want to just, drive my car off the road, or drop my baby, or kick my dog, or whatever, whatever kind of specifics are going on with the thoughts, it can feel like that. There might be other examples such as, sexual orientation. You might think that, because you've been, going around in your mind, analysing who you fancy and who you don't, who you're attracted to, then you might think, well, actually, if I'm thinking this much, then maybe I will end up being, that sexuality. Or if it's doubting your gender, you might be thinking, oh, maybe I will want to be a woman, or will want to be a man if I'm thinking about it that much. So then it's kind of, you're linking the fact that the thoughts, you're making that mean something, that you will actually do something, or that it actually means something about you. And of course, when we learn more about OCD and intrusive thoughts, there is the whole key thing that thoughts are thoughts and feelings are feelings. But it's no good me sitting here and saying that thought action fusion is a cognitive distortion, therefore it doesn't mean anything if you're thinking it and everything like that, because the nature of OCD is that we will doubt it. So, the more we've kind of got tied into that idea of thought action fusion, even if we then say to ourselves, well, I'm not going to do that necessarily because I'm in control of my actions, or it doesn't necessarily have to mean something about me because it's just a thought or whatever. Even if we said that to ourselves, quite often what we can find with our OCD is that it comes up with another argument. So it's good to be aware of it, when other themes that kind of crop up and everything, and be aware that, am I kind of falling under this again? But even if you're aware that their thought action fusion might be at play in that moment, it won't suddenly stop it feeling really uncomfortable, or feeling really like this feared scenario may happen. And this is where kind of tolerating the uncertainty comes in. So you in that moment you might be then suddenly aware of, that's I'm kind of convincing myself I'm going to do it just because I'm thinking about it. And then it's sort of, then it's kind of like, okay, well, it might be just, this cognitive distortion of thought action fusion. So let's not do a compulsion. But of course, it's very hard. It's very tempting. Sometimes it can almost happen automatically without you even being able to kind of get in there and stop it if it's a mental compulsion because of the anxious thinking cycle. So this is where even being aware of thought action fusion or any of the other cognitive distortions, it's even if you're aware of them, the work on, bringing down your fear level still needs to be done. So this is still where, because OCD will you will come up with other arguments as to why the feared scenario may be real, and therefore you must do compulsions in order to stop it happening or anything like that. Because OCD will always make you doubt no matter what. So the more, and of course, and we know the more you kind of come back to it with arguments as to why it might not be true, i.e. reassurance seeking or anything like that, the more you dig yourself further into it. And this is why kind of going through your fears rather than around them or trying to avoid them is how you work on your recovery. And that is, with working on, that's why exposure therapy is the gold standard when it comes to OCD recovery. But then there is cognitive work that you can do as well to help bring your fear levels down of the feared scenario. So then you're less likely to be kind of fooled by these cognitive distortions such as thought action fusion. So on this channel we talk about challenging irrational beliefs in order to bring fear levels down. So on this channel we talk about this is based on REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy, which was founded by Albert Ellis. So that's what we talk about on this channel, and that's one way of helping to bring your fear levels down. So it's challenging the beliefs that you may hold around, your feared scenario. And there are lots of videos on this channel about, how to identify what your kind of fears might be around your theme. You can look at some of the theme specific videos and playlists, and there's just general videos about how to identify what your kind of what your fears might be. And look at where you might be saying, I must not, I should not, or it would be awful if, I couldn't stand it if, etc. So I won't go into too much detail about that because, as I said, there's plenty of videos available, but you can look at that in order to help to bring your fear levels down. And when you do bring your fear levels down of your feared scenario, it can help to slow down that anxious thinking, and then it gives you more kind of autonomy over where your mind goes. Obviously we talk about mindfulness. You hear a lot about this in relation to OCD, and that can be helpful for some people. Obviously it's not always one size fits all with mindfulness. It depends on maybe you as an individual. But for some people it can be helpful, and that alongside that can help sort of slow down that anxious thinking cycle as well, rather than just jump on it straight away. But it really sort of with REBT, like we talk about on this channel, in my experience that was very helpful for me personally in challenging the beliefs in terms of kind of being able to have more choice over where my mind goes, and therefore being able to better sit with uncertainty and discomfort and let it pass, rather than kind of your thinking going 100 miles an hour because you're absolutely petrified. So I hope this video has been helpful in regards to talking about thought action fusion and how some of the ways that you might be able to kind of tackle it, and how some of the ways that it might show up for you. Obviously the list of ways that I've given is not even scratching the surface of how it can present, because OCD is so very creative, and it can come in all sorts of forms for all different people. So there will be plenty of other ways, but essentially it's identifying, do I believe that just by thinking something, it means that I'm going to do it, or it automatically means something about me? But then obviously, as I said, it's very useful to know about this. But when it comes to OCD, even if we are aware of these things, we quite often can, even if we tell ourselves that's going on in our minds, is a cognitive distortion, we might still, most likely we'll still find ourselves doubting it. So hence why, the treatment the various kind of, it's kind of like facing your fears essentially is the recommended treatment for OCD, in the form of exposure and response prevention. And as I said, and they're kind of alongside that cognitive work as well. So I hope it's been helpful for you. And just before I finish the video, I would like to say, if you are interested in joining any of the webinars that are run by OCD Recovery, or if you're interested in finding out more about coaching, you can email info@ocdrecovery.com. But thank you very much for watching, and do take care. Bye.